Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out every day, it expands our base. I am today in Austin, Texas, and woke up this morning to the news that the governor of this great state, Greg Abbott, is calling out the National Guard and the state police because he is afraid of Antifa and violence on King's Day. That is the national demonstration called for this weekend to oppose what Donald Trump is doing, essentially saying, we don't have a king. We must have a president. I am reporting today very clearly and very precisely that in this peaceful city of Austin, the National Guard and the state police are preparing not to mobilize against right-wing nuts or left-wing nuts. They're mobilizing against the right of the people to protest. It is interesting to note that I am this morning in the middle of this action. And of course, I will be here all weekend and will have an opportunity to witness what I expect will be an indication of what the Trump administration and Republican governors like Greg Abbott are trying to pull off in the United States of America. Yesterday, I went to the LBJ Library. Lyndon Baines Johnson was a remarkable man, the 36th President of the United States. And I would remind you that he was a man who was extremely controversial. Hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? Do you remember that slogan? Maybe you're not old enough to remember, but the Vietnam War tore this country asunder. But I am going to tell you now that LBJ should be remembered for many other things. The Voting Rights Act, which I must tell you right now, the Supreme Court is trying to revise and change. The Civil Rights Act, Medicare, numerous programs which helped shape this country from Head Start. Well, you can name hundreds of programs. Lyndon Johnson was a towering figure in American politics. I will never forget being with George McGovern. He used to come in to be interviewed by me regularly when he was in San Francisco. And I once asked him his assessment of Lyndon Johnson. And he said to me, John, he was one of the 5 greatest presidents in the history of this country. And I looked at him incredulously because I couldn't get the fact that Lyndon Johnson, who he opposed on the war in Vietnam, McGovern campaigned against him, but he was right. You have to separate things out. There are accomplishments that presidents may make, like Nixon going to China, or Carter and the Panama Canal, or Reagan and his initiatives around the country on so many different levels. You know, I want in my mind, while I'm here in Texas, to separate many of these issues. But the fact that I am now in a state where the National Guard is being deployed, when troops are being deployed in a city where I will be for the next several days, astounding. By the way, yesterday we drove through the streets of Austin because we were trying to get to the LBJ Library. I did not see a protest or a demonstration. Now, it's true, the demonstrations are not starting until this weekend. But why would you imagine that people in Texas, that the governor of this great state, would imagine that because people are protesting, well, because of that, there would be Antifa riots? By the way, there is no such thing as Antifa as a national organization. There are people who may call themselves Antifa. There may be anarchists who choose that term. But Antifa as a national force doesn't exist. Let me tell you, the Students for a Democratic Society back in the Johnson years did exist. And there were issues around what they did and how they did it. But this, my friends, now that I'm in the middle of it and can see it and smell it and, yes, taste it, this kind of action by a state government at the behest of a federal government is just out of line. It's wrong. We will watch today to see what happens, but there's more in the news. John Bolton has now been indicted and will appear in court, and he will plead not guilty. But can you imagine the President of the United States of America, who has listed a series of people that he intends to get? Letitia James, James Comey, and now the former national security advisor in his own administration, not to mention the fact that California Senator Adam Schiff is squarely in the headlights. And let me remind you, you can indict a United States senator. We have had that happen in recent years on several occasions. My friends, there is something seriously wrong. I just happened to be in Austin, Texas today. I will witness this weekend what happens. But I can assure you of one thing. The right of protest is guaranteed in this country. And when a president or a governor try to inhibit the right of a people to protest, that's terrible. It has to be a peaceful protest, but if it isn't peaceful, that's what we have police for, not National Guard. And the deployment of National Guard into cities and towns in America is a disgrace. Now, let me make a quick comment about what's happening in Ukraine. I just want you to know, because all of this is unfolding. Today, Donald Trump will meet in the Oval Office with Volodymyr Zelensky. But then he's going to Budapest, where he will meet with Vladimir Putin. I don't know whether there can be a resolution to this conflict, but I do have a memory of a previous Budapest memorandum. It was signed by the then President of the United States, the then Prime Minister of Great Britain, and the then President of Russia. And it ensured the independence and the ability of Ukraine to have defensible situations. Do you remember what the guarantees were? Russia would not invade. There would be no problems with Ukraine. And in return, Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal. In those days, the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world. I can only tell you, I wish President Trump well. I hope he is able to work out a solution. But I hope it is not a matter of appeasement. I hope that Zelensky stands firm and that Ukraine is able to retain its independence and return of its territory. I hope these things with all my heart. Otherwise, it will be appeasement. Appeasement. Again? And I wish to point out that in the Middle East, the great, big, beautiful peace deal that Donald Trump claimed to have heard, and I'm going to tell you, I said to you, it was not a peace deal, it was a return to the hostage deal, and it worked. But when you now have Hamas in the streets shooting political opponents, where is the peace? Where? This is a fascinating period in our history, and I am happy to be able to talk with you about it. I have deep concerns, but I can tell you that this weekend, when there are protests against the idea of kings, I will be right there, because this country is not a monarchy. Do you remember, and I've used it before here on this program, do you remember when Benjamin Franklin, leaving Constitution Hall, was asked by a woman, "What have you given us, Dr. Franklin, a republic or a monarchy?" And Franklin responded, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." We are now in a struggle, in my mind, to keep our republic. And make no mistake, the demonstrations which will take place across this country against Donald Trump are well-deserved. And let me also make it clear, when Donald Trump does something good, like arranging the release of the hostages, 3 cheers for him. It's like Nixon going to China, 3 cheers for Nixon. But when a president violates the fundamental essence of the oath of office of the President of the United States, if the right of protest is diminished, if an enemies list is able to take control of our nation's judiciary, that is to say, our Justice Department, there is something wrong. And we will be watching this weekend to see how it all works out. This is John Rothman. I am in Austin, Texas. Follow the news. Hear what happens here. as Governor Abbott calls out the National Guard and the state Texas police. Let's watch it. Let's see what happens. But most important of all, let's protest against these kinds of actions. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. You can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and, of course, by direct email. And, of course, I want to say a big thanks to Gogo Zoger, who makes sure that this podcast is up and running every day. Now, it is true. Tomorrow is Saturday, so it's a weekend. So I will be out figuring out what's going on, but I will be back. I'll still be in Texas on Monday, but I'll be back, and we will have an opportunity to chat about what is happening in Texas, in the nation, and in the world. I am John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman, and I can't wait for Monday. Have a great weekend.